Hey guys, it's Girl Got Game, and we're back one last time for Amnesia. Each of these guys has one more short story left to tell. So, of course, we're going to start with Shinny. Way back in the beginning, good old Shinny. Let's see what short story we have involving him, first of all. Alright, when the doorbell rang, it was 30 minutes past 10. No normal person would stop by so late, so it was obvious who it was. Oh, invited her in. Wait, this is Shin's room. Oh, maybe this is from... Oh, is this from their point of view? Oh, I think so. That's awesome. Okay. Alright, alright. Let's get the Shinny voice on. It hit him.
When the doorbell rang, it was 30 minutes past 10. No normal person would stop by so late, so it was obvious who it was. Without using the intercom or even looking through the peephole, I turned the lock to open the door and invite her in. The sight of her there came as no surprise.
Shin!
The familiar face from my childhood looked up at me and beamed.
I thought it was... Yeah, looks like I'm right. Wanna go see a movie?
Without so much as a hello or an excuse me, she barged her way into my house. She lived nearby and was a year older than me. The Mayuga University blazer she wore meant she was on her way home from school, and the guitar case slung across her back answered any questions as to why she would still be out this late in her uniform. After practicing with her bandmates, she probably met up with them somewhere. The look on her face showed how much fun she had, and my heart twinged a little. Why all of a sudden? Even though I sounded irritated, she was completely unfazed.
Someone gave me a ticket, but only one. I'd feel lonely by myself, so I wanted to know if you'd come with me. I'll pay for half, okay? I'm sure you'll like it.
The movie title on the ticket was of the season's #1 blockbuster, an epic space fantasy movie.
Alright.
It was heavily marketed on its flashy SFX and action, so I knew it wasn't something I'd hate. But I pushed the ticket back with a sigh. Isn't there anyone else besides me? Why don't you go with one of those girls? The reason I refused was because I didn't want other people to look at us and think that we were a couple. To still be hanging out with a childhood friend at this age was embarrassing, and I was still immature enough to be nervous at the thought of seeing a movie with a girl.
Oh, so this isn't when you guys were dating. This is before you started dating. And I guess before she lost all her memories, too.
And because I knew it was inconsequential to her, I was even more resistant to it. It seemed to hold no other meaning to her as she told me.
All of my other friends have Christmas Eve plans with their boyfriends on the 24th, so there's no one else to go with.
I wanted to ask her, don't you see what that implies, going to see a movie with a guy on Christmas Eve? But of course, she wouldn't have thought that. I probably wouldn't have either. This were a couple months ago. Why would you accept a ticket for a movie on such an awkward day? And just the one? Was it a guy who gave you that, or a girl?
A guy.
Don't you think he has a ticket for the seat next to you? Did he ask you to go with him? She looked uncomfortable for a moment.
He didn't say anything like that to me. Well, I guess maybe I thought he might have meant it in that way, but...
But?
When he gave me the ticket, I said, "Oh, this looks like a movie Shin would like," and just left it at that.
Why?
Well, isn't that date a little suspicious?
It was very suspicious. The guy definitely had his intentions.
If he meant it the way it sounded, it would have been awkward, so I just blurted out your name. Sorry.
You shouldn't avoid the issue like that. Isn't it better to turn him down properly? I couldn't help but feel sympathy for the man who worked up the courage to ask her out. She scrunched her shoulders uneasily.
Turn him down? I couldn't do that. I want to believe he didn't mean it that way. He's part of the band, after all.
"Ah, I get it now," I thought to myself. My stomach dropped a bit. The image of her standing and singing in front of the band was so explosively powerful that it consumed my mind, even knowing all of her flaws from childhood. If it was like that for me, it's not surprising that a guy who saw her singing every day would have those kinds of feelings for her.
Oh, Shin.
But she simply wasn't prepared to accept those feelings. And to protect his feelings and their friendship, she pretended as if his invitation wasn't real, and asked me instead. "I got it. I'll go." I took the ticket from her and checked the time and seat number. "I'll call the theater to see if the seat next to you is open. Let me borrow this for a sec."
Yes, thank you.
I felt a pang in my heart when I saw her smile in relief and buried it deep down, turning my eyes away from her. The fact that I was now starting to be aware of her as a woman was something even I was conscious of. I was even aware of my jealousy towards the person who bought the ticket. He was on his way to heartbreak, but even so, he was cherished enough to not want to be lost as a friend. He spent so much more time next to her than I have. The bigger difference was that he was thought of more as a man, where being with him on Christmas Eve was wrong.
Oh, Shinny, you're breaking my heart here. In the friend zone.
"Yes, that seat is fine. Thank you." Days later, that seat suddenly became open again, and I was able to reserve it for myself. A part of me felt sorry for him, but another part of me thought of him as a rival. I checked the time around 6 p.m. Although she was probably in the middle of practice, I gave her a call.
I can't come to the phone right now, but...
I let out a sigh as the message played, then told her that I got the ticket. After I hung up, I wondered whether its original owner was right next to her now, listening to her sing. He might be looking at her with mixed feelings, checking himself with a stiff smile. I could never take his position. I pulled the strap of the bass guitar against the wall and plucked at the strings, turning my ear toward each deep pitch, but the sound that my untrained fingers spun out seemed hopelessly cloudy to me.
Oh, so sad. Or in the back alley.
The city was soaked in lights and the distant sound of choirs. In the alley at the back door of the cafe where she worked, she stood, waiting for me. She wore a deep red dress the color of wine, and I wondered if it was a conscious decision based on the day. The bag on her arm, decorated with white roses, shone in the dim alley light. Above her chest sat a rose-shaped pendant, presumably matched to her bag. My already embarrassed tread slowed to half, and I looked over her clothes from top to bottom.
Living up to her name, I see.
"What's with the outfit?"
Oh, is it weird?
It wasn't weird. It was the perfect outfit for meeting a guy on Christmas Eve. Almost too perfect. It was unbearably cute.
Oh, Shin. When I told my friends that I was going to see a movie with you, they all told me to wear this and that.
Most likely, her friends were counting on a story of love blossoming between longtime childhood friends. They probably thought it amusing that our relationship could change dramatically as a result of this date.
I told them that it was weird for me to dress up like this when it was just you, but...
I wanted to ask what was so weird about it, that it was Christmas Eve, so dressing up wasn't something out of the ordinary. But I couldn't tell whether I wanted to say it because of feelings of love, or because seeing an old friend like this was surprising. My feelings were uncertain, even to me.
Do I look kind of strange?
No, you're fine. I hid my true feelings behind a short reply. My attitude toward her couldn't change now. Forget about that. Let's go to the theater.
Right. Let's do that, as not awkwardly as possible.
I left the alleyway, and she obediently followed. As we entered the main street, the once distant clamor was now spread before us. It was impossible to not feel annoyed at the bustle of the holiday. What annoyed me more was the sight of a man waiting for us in front of the theater.
Oh no, is this a rejected suitor?
Guitar case slung over his shoulder, leaning against the theater wall. He spotted us and stood up straight as if startled. I didn't have to ask who it was. I knew. It was the guy who originally asked her out for tonight.
Sorry, I just needed to come here.
I was sorry too. She stood motionless next to me.
Is that kid your childhood friend Shin?
It ticked me off slightly to be called that kid, but it wasn't a lie that I was younger. It's nice to meet you, I said. I've seen you on stage before.
Oh, you came to see the concert. Thanks.
I didn't come to see your concert. I came for my friend. I looked at him silently with contempt, but as I watched him, he appeared to me more dense than I first considered him, and showed no signs of noticing.
Close childhood friends. It's kinda nice.
Yeah.
But a movie on Christmas Eve? If anyone else saw you, they think you were dating.
It was she who voiced her dissent.
But we're not.
Hearing her deny it so matter-of-factly was a sudden blow to my heart.
If that's the case, then does that mean that I can still hope?
Of course you can't, I thought.
Oh, well...
You kinda avoided it before, but I do want to say something to you. The truth is, I want to...
Shin, we better get going or we'll be late.
Hey, a bit obvious, don't you think?
Oh, no, that's him.
Hey, a bit obvious, don't you think?
I muttered as we turned, but I don't think anyone heard me. Pulling my arm along with her, she shook off the man running after her and headed towards the theater entrance.
Wait, I'm not finished yet.
Sorry, I'll see you at band practice.
If you won't stop and listen, I'll just say it.
I'm sorry, we're going to be late.
The thing is, I really like...
I was the one to stop in my tracks now. She was walking at a hurried pace and stumbled from being pulled back so suddenly.
Shin.
I pretended I couldn't hear the reproach in her voice. She doesn't want to hear it, all right. The man trailing after us also stopped moving at my cold words. All she'll do is turn you down, so stop pushing it when you know it'll only upset her. It's disgraceful.
Why, you...
Also, she's mine. Figure that much out.
Ooh.
Mine.
This time, he was silent. I was lying, of course, but it was the most effective way of dispensing of him here. See you. I took her hand from my arm and held onto it. Though it was sudden, she didn't complain or show any surprise.
He's holding her hand? Man, it was so hard. It was like pulling teeth getting him to hold her hand before. Aw, man.
But the man that stopped following us was probably what she was happiest about. She looked up at me with an expression on her face that said, "Thank you." Damn it, I spat inwardly. This can't be. The man who had been turned down so unceremoniously was actually ahead of me in her eyes. He was considered a man. If he were the one with his tight grip on her, she probably wouldn't be smiling at him like this. Even though I had lied to him out of possessiveness, from the look of gratitude on her face, I saw no trace of doubt. In her eyes, I saw only trust. And I knew she didn't regard me as a man.
Thank you so much, Shin. To think, though, us being a couple...
My irritation grew at the way she said it, so carefree. No matter how close we were, no matter that we were on a date on Christmas Eve, she felt safe because she thought I was safe. It was like family. If we were family, it would mean that as the years passed, we would grow distant. I wondered how long she was planning to keep things this way. Even if this guy wasn't her type, if someone who was were to show up, would she be happier with him? It was natural for us to always be together now, but one day we would go our separate ways. If this distance didn't change, nothing would. If I asked you seriously to go out with me, what would you do? Hearing this, she looked genuinely puzzled.
Do you really want a girlfriend that badly? I'm sure you'll find a really nice girl, Shin.
It was the worst possible answer. She didn't even think of us in that way in the slightest. I'm being supported in dating another girl. Forget it. Let's just go see the movie.
Huh?
I tightened my grip on her hand. Trying to change the relationship we've built was probably not a good idea. If I tried to bridge the gap between us, it could potentially ruin everything. No matter how painful that might be, I will not let go of this hand. The day when I would no longer be able to suppress these growing feelings inside of me didn't feel so far away.
Oh, Shin! Break my heart. So I wonder if that's part of his world, or if that happened in the true world or not. Oh, but Shin, oh. He was bro zone, never mind friend zone. Huh, well that was really sweet. Oh man, he felt for her so badly. Aw. What a hero, though. Well, that was Shin's short story. It was super cute. Next, guess we'll do Iki's. See you then.